1940. 400 prisoners in Chicago are infected with malaria in order to study the effects of new and experimental drugs to combat the disease. Nazi doctors later on trial at Nuremberg cite this American study to defend their own actions during the Holocaust. 1942. Chemical Warfare Services begins mustard gas experiments on approximately 4,000 servicemen. The experiments continue until 1945 and made use of Seventh-day Adventists who chose to become human guinea pigs rather than serve on active duty. 1944, the U.S. Navy uses human subjects to test gas masks and clothing. Individuals were locked in a gas chamber and exposed to mustard gas and lewisite. 1945, Project Paperclip is initiated. And Project Paperclip, my friends, was a watershed event in this country's history. And mark my words right now, someday that will be common knowledge. Okay? 1945, Paperclip is initiated. The U.S. State Department, Army Intelligence, and the CIA recruit Nazi scientists and offer them immunity and secret identities in exchange for work on top secret government projects inside the United States. 1945, Program F is implemented by the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. 1947, Colonel E. Kirkpatrick of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission issues a secret document. The document number was 070750001. It was from January 8th of 1947. That document stated that the agency would begin administering intravenous doses of radioactive substances to human subjects. Did you hear what I just said? Document 070750001 from the United States Atomic Energy Commission, dated January 8, 1947, states that the agency will begin administering intravenous doses of radioactive substances to human subjects. 1947, the CIA begins its study of LSD as a potential weapon for use by American intelligence. Human subjects, both civilian and military, are used both with and without their informed consent or their knowledge. 1950, the Department of Defense begins plans to detonate nuclear weapons in desert areas and monitor the downwind residents for medical problems and mortality rates. I have a close friend who has a congenital defect because his mother, when she was pregnant with him, was living in Utah and was exposed to exactly that in the early 1940s. And he's a frequent guest on this program. But 1950, the Department of Defense begins plans to detonate nuclear weapons in the desert, monitor downwind residents for medical problems and mortality rates. Yep. Also in 1950, in an experiment to determine how susceptible an American city would be to biological attack, the U.S. Navy sprays a cloud of bacteria from ships over San Francisco. Monitoring devices are situated throughout the city in order to test the extent of the infection. Many residents become ill with pneumonia-like symptoms. 1951, Department of Defense begins open-air tests using disease-producing bacteria and viruses. Tests last through 1969, and there is a concern that people in the surrounding areas have been exposed. 1953, U.S. military releases clouds of zinc-cadmium sulfide gas over Winnipeg, St. Louis, Minneapolis, Fort Wayne, Indiana, the Monocacy River Valley in Maryland, the Leesburg area of Virginia. Their intent is to determine how efficiently they could disperse chemical agents. 1953, a joint Army-Navy-CIA experiment is conducted in which tens of thousands of people in New York and San Francisco are exposed to the airborne germ Serratia marcescens and Bacillus gliogili. 1953, CIA initiates Project MK Ultra, which you will hear us talk about in great detail tonight. Project MK Ultra, initiated in 1953. This is an 11-year research program designed to produce and test drugs and biological agents and other technologies that would be used for mind control and behavior modification. 6 of the over 140 sub-projects involve testing the agents on unwitting human beings. Actually, many more than that. 1955, the CIA, in an experiment to test its ability to infect human populations with biological agents, releases a bacteria withdrawn from the Army's biological warfare arsenal over Tampa Bay, Florida. 1955, Army Chemical Corps continues LSD research, studying its potential use as a chemical incapacitating agent. More than 1,000 Americans participate in these tests, which continue until 1958. 1956, U.S. military releases mosquitoes infected with yellow fever over Savannah, Georgia, and Avon Park, Florida. Following each test, the Army agents posing as public health officials test victims for effects. 1958, LSD is tested on 95 volunteers at the Army's Chemical Warfare Laboratory for its effect on intelligence. It actually had a tremendous effect on intelligence, and that's why it's illegal now. 1960, Army Assistant Chief of Staff for Intelligence, ACSI, authorizes field testing of LSD in Europe and the Far East. Testing of the European population is codenamed Project Third Chance. Testing of the Asian population is codenamed Derby Hat. 1965, CIA and Department of Defense begin Project MK Search, a project to develop the capability to manipulate human behavior through the use of mind-altering drugs. 1965, prisoners at the Holmesburg State Prison in Philadelphia are subjected to dioxin, highly toxic chemical, and a component of Agent Orange, of course, which was used in Vietnam. The men are later studied for development of cancer, which indicates that Agent Orange had been a suspected carcinogen all along. 1966, CIA initiates Project MK Often, a program to test toxicological effects of certain drugs on humans and animals. 66, U.S. Army dispenses Bacillus subtilis variant Niger through New York City subway system. More than 1 million civilians are exposed when Army scientists drop light bulbs filled with the bacteria onto the ventilation grates. 1967, CIA and Department of Defense implement Project MK Naomi. MK Naomi was a successor to MK Ultra, which I mentioned earlier. Naomi was designed to maintain a stockpile and to test biological and chemical weapons. 1968, CIA experiments with the possibility of poisoning drinking water by injecting chemicals into the water supply of the FDA in Washington, D.C. 1969, Dr. Robert McMahon of the Department of Defense requests from Congress $10 million to develop within 5 to 10 years a synthetic biological agent to which no immunity exists. Funding for the synthetic biological agent is obtained under H.R. 15090. The project, under the supervision of the CIA, is carried out by the Special Operations Division at Fort Detrick. Detrick is, of course, the Army's top secret biological weapons facility. Speculation is raised that molecular biology techniques are used to produce AIDS-like retroviruses. 1970, the U.S. intensifies its development of ethnic weapons. This is from the Military Review of November 1970, designed to selectively target and eliminate specific ethnic groups which are susceptible due to genetic differences and variations in DNA. Of course, that same story came out in the news about a year and a half ago maybe, as if it were new. Of course, this has been going on for 35 years, this research. 1975, the virus section of Fort Detrick Center for Biological Warfare Research is renamed Frederick Cancer Research Facility and placed under the supervision of the National Cancer Institute. It is here that the Special Virus Cancer Program is initiated by the U.S. Navy, purportedly to develop cancer-causing viruses. It is also here that retrovirologists isolate a virus to which no immunity exists It is later named HTLV, Human T-cell leukemia virus. 77. Senate hearings on health and scientific research confirm that 239 populated areas had been contaminated with biological agents between 1949 and 1969. Some of the areas include San Fran, Washington, D.C., Key West, Panama City, St. Louis. 1978, experimental hepatitis B vaccine trials conducted by CDC begin in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Ads for research subjects specifically asked for promiscuous homosexual men. 1981, first cases of AIDS are confirmed in homosexual men in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, triggering speculation that AIDS may have been introduced via hepatitis B vaccine. How about 1987? Department of Defense admits that despite a treaty banning research and development of biological agents, it continues to operate research facilities in that exact technology at 127 facilities and universities around the nation. 1990. More than 1,500 6-month-old black and Hispanic babies in Los Angeles are given an experimental measles vaccine that had never been licensed for use in the United States of America. The CDC later admits that parents were never informed that the vaccine given to their children was experimental. 1994, with a technique called gene tracking, Dr. Gary Nicholson at the Marilyn Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas, discovers that many returning Desert Storm veterans are infected with an altered strain of Mycoplasma incognitus, a microbe commonly used in the production of biological weapons. Incorporated into the structure of this particular strain is 40% of the HIV protein code. All right, that indicates that it's man-made. 1994, Senator John D. Rockefeller issues a report revealing that for at least 50 years, the DoD has used hundreds of thousands of military personnel in human experiments and for intentional exposure to dangerous substances. 1996, Department of Defense admits Desert Storm soldiers were exposed to chemical agents. 1997, 88 members of Congress, which is pathetic that only 88 members of Congress care about this, and even they won't push it. They signed a letter, in any case, demanding an investigation into the use of bioweapons and the connection to Gulf War syndrome.
Listen to this carefully, folks. This is their own words. In the dark retreats of Islam, the Sufi explored the depths of nature. Among the Jews, the learned rabbins unraveled the intricate skein of Kabbalism. Among the Greeks, initiates rose to life through the nocturnal rituals of Eleusis. In India, neophytes were brought to the contemplation of the triple-headed Brahma at Elephanta and Ellora. Through the Middle Ages, the alchemists in their retreats explored the infinite chemistry of existence. The Illuminati sought the pearl of great price, and Rosicrucian adepts sought to recast the molten sea. All these together were but Isis, still searching for the members of her Lord.